Today we are reflecting on Job chapter 19 and 20, two chapters that hold powerful contrasts between pain and hope, and between human judgment and divine truth. As you meditate on this, I invite you to open your heart to what God is revealing, even in the midst of your suffering or misunderstanding. And as always, we'll choose a blanket color at the end to represent today's theme. So let's get started. Hello, my name is Maureen, and if you haven't guessed already, I'm passionate about the word hand crochet. Humility and Hope documents my chronological Bible reading and prayer journey as I crochet a blanket based on the daily prayer theme. So in chapter 19, Job responds to his friends' accusations with honesty, yet again, very raw. He feels utterly abandoned by friends, by family, and even by God. He says, "My relatives stay far away, and my friends have turned against me. My family is gone, and my close friends have forgotten me. My servants and maids consider me a stranger. I am like a foreigner to them. When I call my servant, he doesn't come. I have to plead with him. My breath is repulsive to my wife. I am rejected by my own family. Even young children despise me. When I stand to speak, they turn their backs on me. My close friends detest me. Those I loved have turned against me. I have been reduced to skin and bones, and have escaped death by the skin of my teeth." Maybe you felt that way too, isolated in your pain and misunderstood in your struggle. But then something stunning happens. In the depths of his despair, Job lifts his eyes and declares one of the most hope-filled statements in the entire Old Testament. He says in verse 25, "But as for me, I know that my Redeemer lives, and he will stand upon the earth at last. And after my body has decayed, yet in my body I will see God. I will see him for myself. Yes, I will see him with my own eyes. I am overwhelmed at the thought." Aren't you overwhelmed at the thought too, of seeing God with your own eyes? This is where we find a "He is" statement for today. He is the one who gives us back our lives. Despite the ruin around him, Job clings to the hope of redemption, not from man, but from God himself. This reminds me of Hannah. She was ridiculed and shamed for being barren, even misunderstood by Eli the priest when she was in deep anguish, crying bitterly as she prayed to the Lord. But like Job, she didn't let her suffering define her. She clung to hope and cried to the Lord, and in time God responded, not just with a child, Samuel, but with renewed strength and peace. Remember what she said in 1 Samuel chapter 1 verse 16? "I am praying out of my great anguish and sorrow." This was when Eli thought she was drunk. And then later, she comes back with a praise report and she says, "My heart rejoices in the Lord. The Lord has made me strong. Now I have an answer for my enemies. I rejoice because he rescued me." Just like Hannah and like Job, we can hold on to our Redeemer, even when everything feels broken. Chapter 20 shifts back to Zophar. I love that name, Zophar. One of Job's friends. And honestly, it's tough to read. The whole entire Job is tough to read, but we gotta do it. We gotta do it. Zophar's speech is filled with imagery of judgment and hell. He never says Job's name directly. I mean, none of them ever do when they're saying these things, when they're making those to sly hints over here and over there. But it's clear. He believes Job's suffering is proof that he's wicked. He says in verse 29, "This is the reward that God gives the wicked," after he has described what hellish hell wicked people go through. And the problem with Zophar's logic is that he's equating suffering with punishment and prosperity with righteousness. But that's not always true. We have seen this theme throughout a lot of the chapters in Job and a lot of the things the friends talk about. And when we were going through Job chapter 13 to chapter 15, we saw the example with the healing of the blind man in John chapter 9. And also think of the rich young ruler in Matthew chapter 19. He had everything: wealth, morality, status. But when Jesus told him to give it all away and follow him, the man walked away sad. He went away sad, for he had many possessions. Zophar would have looked at that man and assumed he was blessed. But Jesus saw the heart clinging to the wrong treasure. It wasn't the man's wealth that was the problem. It was the belief that having it meant he didn't need redemption. Sometimes we are like Job, enduring pain we didn't cause. And sometimes you're like Zophar, or the rich young ruler, quick to judge or unwilling to let go of our assumptions. But the gospel invites us to see beyond appearances and cling to the truth. That God alone is Redeemer. that suffering isn't always punishment, and that reward in this life isn't always a sign of favor. We've talked about this in a lot of the chapters, and it's a theme that keeps popping up. So it's something that God really wants us to get into our hearts, to get into our minds, that these things aren't always as they seem, that He alone is the Redeemer, and that suffering is not always punishment, and that reward in this life isn't always a sign of favor. On this day, I prayed that you would stand firm against all forms of wickedness, including the temptation to judge others unfairly, or to give up hope when we are wrongly judged. And of course, just as it has said in verse 25 of chapter 19, that God is our Redeemer, this was my blanket theme for the day. I chose orange because orange represents salvation in this blanket. You can download the PDF that contains all the lists of these themes that you're using, the color codes, the daily reading prompts in the link I'll provide in the description. So as I've said, on this day, my blanket color was orange, which represents salvation. And it reminds us that God's redemption is burning bright, even in the darkest places. Calamity will surely destroy the wicked, and those who hate the righteous will be punished. But the Lord will redeem those who serve Him. No one who takes refuge in Him will be condemned. God reminds us of this in Isaiah. Do not be afraid, for I have ransomed you. I have called you by my name. You are mine. So when you see orange in your blanket, you'll remember that God saves, God restores, and God gives us back our lives. He redeems not only our lives, but our situations and our time. When you're going through things, you might think that there's nothing to it, but we know His thoughts are higher than our thoughts, and His ways are higher than our ways. So you know that if He has allowed you to go through this, it's for something. He will redeem it. He will redeem it if you place it in His hands. Job's hope or Hannah's faith spoke to your heart. I'd love to hear it in the comments. Don't forget that we overcome Him by the blood and the power of our testimonies. So testify, people.
Testify.
And until next time, keep trusting, keep praying, and keep creating, because our Redeemer lives, and what a joy it is. And He's the one who gives you back your life. Amen.